Hello, and welcome back to Making Vegan Ordinary podcast, where we talk with members of our community, sharing experiences and learn from each other, hopefully providing a little community to some of you along the way. I'm your host, Chloe, and today I will be talking to at your vegan family. Hello.
Good morning, Chloe. I'm Stacy. This is Marcus.
Thanks
it's nice to see you.
And thanks for sharing your afternoon with us.
That's fine. Would you like to give a brief introduction to yourself, such as your name, what you do, and how people listening can support you? As long as you're comfortable, obviously.
Sure.
Well, we're Stacy and Marcus, and we have two boys living at home with us who are 6 and 10, Orion and Nico. They're at school, so they're not on our interview today. And we live on a wee little island in the Northwest United States. Mm-hmm. And we have Your Vegan Family so that we can help people go vegan in a way that is sustainable to help them set up for success from the beginning, as far as how to make cooking easy, how to make purchasing the food that you want easy, and how to support your health in a way that allows you to stay vegan for decades.
And so we are both scientists by college education. I'm a molecular biologist, and Stacy's a biologist, and she's got her master's in acupuncture as well, and has had a private practice for 25 years. And I've worked in various aspects of healthcare and environmental protection, as well as we're both yoga instructors and Reiki practitioners and some of those types of fun things as well. And so we've had a broad and varied background over the past. We're in our early 50s now. And it's all been, around planetary and personal health in one aspect or another. And so, a little over a year ago, I guess now, we felt compelled to share some of the experience that we have. We have been vegan for 26 years. And our kids have been vegan since conception, actually. And so, as Stacy said, Nico, our 10-year-old, and Ryan, our 6-year-olds, have been vegan for their entire lives and even before they were born. And so it's been a very positive, healthful, supportive, the foundation really of lives that we feel very blessed to have led, and to be able to share that in a meaningful, healthy way, especially as a topic that's gaining in popularity, at least in press popularity, and certainly in adoption in countries, especially like yours in the UK there, and a little slower here in the United States. But when you see large fast food chains in the United States and, other corporations really looking at, plant-based milks in particular and plant-based meat substitutes, it has the attention of the worldwide community, actually. And so it's a timely topic as well right now. And we would like to share in any way that we can and help support people with the experience that we've had.
Yeah. Who or what inspired you both to go vegan?
Well, when I was in university, I don't know, in the 1980s, early 1980s, I had a friend. We both played American football. We were athletes, and he'd read a study about the effects of eliminating red meat from your diet.
Yeah.
So we both, as scientists, decided we were going to conduct a science experiment on ourselves. And I had never really experimented with food before. And I grew up in a family with a couple of sisters and very thoughtful parents who really valued food. And, my mom, after a hard day of teaching in school, would come home and make sure that she provided a protein, a starch, a vegetable, a salad, a very balanced meal. We'd oftentimes go to the farm and look at a cow that, became little chopped up packages that said T-bone and rump roast and sirloin in our basement freezer. And so we had food is very emotional, and it's a big part of our lives. And it's a issue that is influenced in the same ways that politics and religion are, and they influence our lives. And so food's always been a big part. And, in my early years, it was the first time I'd ever decided or ever even had kind of been exposed to, well, geez, let's experiment with diet and see what it does. And I was young and super energized and healthy. And I can't say that I saw big change with immediately cutting out red meat, but I didn't have a negative effect. And so I kept going, and over the next couple of years, cut out poultry and fowl, and I ate pescatarian for a couple of years. And then, when I was about maybe 25 or 26, became full-time vegan. So that was about 26 or 27 years ago now.
Yeah. What about yourself, Stacey?
Well, I had a similar upbringing to Marcus. My mother was very mindful about what we were eating. And we raised a cow every year that, as Marcus said, ended up in the big chest freezer. Yeah. And we had some chickens, and that I grew up in the country. So that's what I grew up with. And when I left home to go to college, I changed my diet. I liked more fruits and vegetables than I'd gotten at home. I really wasn't that interested in cooking meat, but it was just something I grew up with. So I continued to. And then I got my master's degree in acupuncture, and nutrition, health, that way is a big part of Asian medicine. You can do acupuncture all you want, but if someone's not eating well, they don't have the building blocks they need to improve their health. So it was always part of what I counseled people in throughout my practice. And I tried a lot of different diets over the years. Clients would come in and go, "Oh, have you heard of the blood type diet? I've been reading about it." So I'd get the book, I'd read about it, and I'd try it. And I did that for years because I wanted to be able to speak from some type of personal experience to my clients and be able to help them and read a book and condense it down into, the succinct points and do lectures on that. And so I tried a lot of different things over the years, always very plant heavy, but not entirely vegan. And then a few years ago, I just stopped eating meat altogether and haven't missed it. I find that what we eat is so delicious and fun and creative and adventurous and draws from world cuisines that I can't imagine missing any of it. So that's been my path.
Yeah. So what was your transition like into veganism then? My daughter seemed to feel like she really needed meat for her at periods of time. So we had that in the house, but mostly we ate a plant-based diet. I would say plant-focused was the diet for most of my adult life, the last 25, 30 years. And so when I focused and just went totally plant-based, it was just one day. And my cooking wasn't that much different. I just wasn't cooking the occasional bit of chicken for my daughter. And yeah, it wasn't much different. I've always loved adventurous food, cuisine from around the world, and so many cultures have plant-based cuisine. It's so easy, no matter what culture you go into, to find a plant-based meal. And so we just have been adventuring along that route. And so I can't say that there really was any transition. It was just like, okay, here's what I'm doing now. This is delicious. Let's keep going. Yeah.
For me, and years ago in the 1980s, I think, veganism, vegetarian was maybe popular in some places, maybe not. But eating vegan was not necessarily an easy thing to do. You had to be very conscious. And I actually lived in London for part of that time, and I lived in New York City, and I worked with corporate executives. And, in that environment, it wasn't an environment that was sensitive in any way to different ways of eating. And so you had to be very conscious and very creative. And I oftentimes would, you can almost always find a salad when things were happening and hope that you could find some nuts or some pulses or some grains or something that would go along with it to have it be nice and balanced. But it was, then it was not, it's easy now to eat vegan out at restaurants. It's easy to find vegan foods that you would like to cook for yourself that might not have been so easy back then. And so my transition was over years, because there were some situations where I could either fast or I had to eat something that was not vegan. And I have fasted for years of my life, but sometimes, again, it's not socially correct, perhaps, to fast in a situation when everybody else is eating. So, my transition was probably a little bit longer. And I also, there's sensitivities around family too. My family still eats a traditional, meat-based diet or omnivorous diet. And I have immense amounts of respect for that. And, when I would go home at Christmas or I would be spending time with them on family vacation, for a week here and there, I tried to adhere as best I could to what I believed in the way that eating works for me. But I also tried never to offend other people or to make it a focus of conversation unless it's a topic of conversation that they bring up.
Yeah.
Because I think it is a very, as I said earlier, it's a very sensitive topic, how we eat and why we eat that way and what are our motivations. And it's highly, highly emotional. And it can be something that could be very divisive. It also can be something that can be highly educational and fun and explorative and adventurous. And, I think for me, again, in that I got exposed to fruits and vegetables and things that I had never eaten when I was a child because I was looking for a wide variety of fruits and vegetables to eat across the rainbow spectrum, to speak, to make sure that I was, getting my proper nutrition levels. And so, that adventurous aspect of it and finding a way to share the fun in it as opposed to, and trying to be conscious of the fact that it can be divisive, was also part of that transition, 25 or 26 years ago.
Yeah. So are both your families supportive then of your veganism?
I would say that my family's they're definitely allowing.
Okay.
I would say they're supportive, but they're allowing. And, they're going to tease me. I'm definitely the black sheep in the family around food, always have been. And so they're always going to tease me when we're having barbecue and, we're getting out our portobello mushrooms. And, it's a fun thing. It's just part of our family culture. And they're perfectly fine whenever we visit to bring our own food and to prep our own food. And they may try it, they may not. They're not as adventurous in their eating as we are, but they're not closed to it. And they're certainly not going to make anybody feel bad about how they eat, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
My family's been great. They, had a while to try to understand the crazy way I eat. And, they love it when we come and spend time with them and we cook for them, and they really have appreciated what we've exposed them to. And, I have a younger sister, and her family is more vegan than not. They're not exclusively vegan. And her, youngest son, who's about 15, is a great vegan chef and loves to cook vegan food. And so, it's when we come together as a family, sometimes for family holidays at the beach, it's always easiest to eat out at a restaurant because then everybody gets what they want. But they're always excited for the night that, we choose to cook the family meal. And they get to eat some yummy vegan food. It's just always been something that's reasonably easy with them, and they're super accepting and supportive.
Yeah. Are there any bad experiences with you guys about being vegan?
No.
With regard to other people or the food itself?
Other people.
Okay. I can't say that I've ever had a negative. I've never had an abrasive interaction or a negative experience. I do think, again, 20 years ago, eating differently from people, especially in a business setting, was not always the easiest thing to do. And so I don't think that we never had contentious conversations around it, but sometimes people would ask questions or provide a comment that probably was more said in jest, but also had an underlying emotion that might not have been positive in it too. But none of those really ever kind of resulted. It didn't happen I can't even think of a specific instance. And when it did happen, it never, evolved into something that was acrimonious or confrontational.
Yeah, I would say, we haven't talked about food sort of out in public before your vegan family got started. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for negative interactions. And now we do talk about it more, and our kids are a little older, so there's more socializing involved. And, people do ask us a lot of questions, and it's an opportunity to build bridges. You know, no matter what someone eats, we don't want anybody to feel bad about what they're eating. They've put some time and energy and thought into what they're putting into their bodies. And we don't ever want anyone to feel bad about what that is. So, you know, you say that you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar, I guess is a saying. And so what we try to do is we try to talk positively about what we're doing. You know, we have some friends, the kids have friends, they go to the skate park a lot, and we like to bring snacks. You know, it's like, hey, we're working on getting our lasagna recipe just perfect. And well, one of the kids who skates, he's Italian, is like, Jack, hey, would you try out this lasagna? Let us know what you think. And so we get feedback that way. And he comes back and goes, this was vegan? Are you serious? There was no dairy cheese. There was no meat. So that's our opportunity to educate, to give something positive and let people try foods. We're just working on some tiramisu. So, you know, how is this, or how are these cookies? And it's just a great opportunity to educate. And instead of making vegan something that is against what they're doing, it's, you know, great. Maybe they'll make one meal a week that is plant-based instead, or maybe they'll try one of our recipes because it was so good. They don't care if it has animal products or is only plants. So we're trying to really eliminate the contention around meat or not meat, and instead go, hey, let's cook and share some good food.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any vegan restaurants near you that you guys really enjoy going to?
Well, not in the place that we live. Our little wee island is an hour and a half ferry ride from the mainland of the United States. We've got about 5,000 to 6,000 year-round residents, which swells to maybe 10,000 people in July and August, our summertime here. And I think on the island, we could figure it out exactly, but we have about 6 restaurants total.
Okay, so not many.
And so of those 6 or 7 restaurants, though, we can eat vegan in pretty much any of them. And there's a sensitivity to vegetarianism and veganism. And of course, because we live in an island and we're looking at Canada and we're living in the Salish Sea, there's a lot of seafood and there's a lot of food that comes specifically from the place that we live. And the nice thing too is that on our island here we have I think it's about 8 or 9 organic farms that provide food for the farmers market. They provide food for the co-op. They provide food from farm to table for the restaurants as well. And so there's a consciousness around food. There's a consciousness around eating local. There's a consciousness around being healthy here. And while there aren't specific vegan restaurants that we frequent, there are, 2 restaurants in particular that we do really like that, at least half their menu's vegan. And there have been dedicated vegan restaurants that have popped up on the island over the past, 10 or 20 years. And like many of the restaurants here, they, might stay around for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then, that restaurant becomes something else. So it's a dynamic community, and it affects the restaurant scene as well.
Yeah.
There is one entirely vegan restaurant that's on a neighboring island, and it's just fabulous. And, pre-COVID, once or twice a year, we'd get over there and enjoy something off of Mike's menu.
Have you seen a rise in veganism since COVID?
I would say so. Maybe not in our immediate vicinity, but certainly in my awareness worldwide and nationwide, there's a lot more interest. As Marcus was saying, our fast food restaurants are offering, I think maybe even McDonald's now is having a meat-free burger. So I think there's a rise in veganism because there's a swelling of young people that are idealistic, as we all are when we're in our teens and 20s, that, go vegan for the animals, or go vegan for the ecology of our whole planet. And so I think that because veganism is in the public eye right now, and people are making choices to not eat animals, for those reasons, that there is a swell. But I think that overall, and perhaps even more impactful to the world, is the awareness that you get a meal without animals in it. So some people may not be vegan, but they choose to go towards a more plant-focused diet. And if you can have, 80% of the population going towards plant focus, that's much more impactful than having, 3% purely vegan. So, any way that we can inspire someone to go, hey, try this, it's plant-based, and they like it and continue to eat it periodically, I think we're making some good strides. So it's become more popular in people's mind, but just going vegan is challenging for some people. We try to help people overcome those challenges.
Yeah, I think if we look at the data, people that are looking at our website and, we read news sources around the world, Al Jazeera, the BBC, the New York Times, to kind of get an understanding of what the consciousness is. And I think during this pandemic and the focus on the healthcare nature for the people in particular, but for all the animals as well, is certainly something that's been talked about, 24/7 now for 14 or 16 months or whatever it's been. And so, how we eat and whether or not the pandemic came from a wet market in China and, should wet markets exist and how do we interact with wild animals and transfer viruses amongst each other and what does planetary health really mean and what are the motivations for eating a vegan diet? Is it for personal health? Is it for planetary health? Is it for, animal cruelty reasons? All of those types of things have gotten talked about much more in the past, year and a half than they have ever been talked about before. Now, whether or not that motivates you to make a change in your way of living, is a very individual thing. And the extent, as Stacey was saying, the extent that you make that change, whether or not, I'm going to decide to cut out one meal a day or I'm going to have a meatless Monday and cut out 3 meals that are meat-based because I understand the environmental impacts that it can have and the climate change that it can mitigate, are all personal choices that we make based on the place that we are in the time that we're at. And so, again, there's more of an opportunity, I think, than ever before, to go back to your previous question, to talk about it. After, for me, for 10 or 20 years, I tried very hard not to talk about it because it was just easier to avoid the issue and easier to bring up an emotionally charged subject that has the potential to be controversial. But now I think with an increased, with the increased information, and some of it's misinformation and some of it's valuable and some of it's not, obviously, but there's more of a background to talk against or to talk with somebody, and there are more angles and there's more education to talk from than there ever has been before. And so I think the pandemic has been very positive for our understanding, or at least our awareness of planetary health and how we personally fit into that and our personal health as well.
So you both are biologists, right?
Yep.
Do you look at the biology of like being vegan, if that makes sense?
Well, biology is the study of life, so absolutely yes. We appreciate being vegan because of the way it can mitigate climate change. So looking at biology in terms of the entire planet and the health of all living beings, absolutely, that part is important. Our personal biology is hugely important. When you're healthy and you feel vibrant, energized, inspired by life, you go out and you do things. You make the world a better place. You have better interactions with your children, deeper relationships. You can have more satisfaction in your personal life. And then, of course, in terms of animal cruelty, it makes a big difference. One life makes a big difference to that animal. So absolutely, biology weaves through our entire experience.
And I think perhaps the most important place that we, apply our scientific background is in our nutritional analysis and understanding of what we eat. I think that there is a potential now, while I appreciate that perhaps if I ever did go to McDonald's or a fast food chain, that there would be a plant-based option for me, unlike there's ever been before. Those are not choices that we generally tend to make. And I think that, eating a whole food, plant-based diet across a broad range of fruits and vegetables is a very, it's an important way to eat you need to eat nutritionally to do that sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with all of the highly processed food products that we have now in the vegan industry, it's very easy for somebody to say, oh, okay, kind of in a fad like way, I'm going to be vegan for a month, or I'm going to be vegan for a week or a certain time period.
Mm-hmm.
And they go out and they take their, red meat product and they substitute it with this highly processed red meat plant product, and they take their chicken product and substitute it with this, and then they're just doing what they always did before, but they're trying to do it with highly processed plant-based products. I think that is certainly an experiment that somebody can conduct. I wouldn't call that a healthy, well-balanced, well-rounded, plant-based, nutritious vegan diet in any way. The largest study still on nutrition that was ever done to date, the China study, which basically came to the conclusion that eating a plant-based diet was the best way to go for health and well-being, also says that it needs to be supplemented. You need to have vitamin D, or you need to spend at least 10 to 20 minutes in the sunshine every day. You need to supplement with omega-3s and omega-6s. You need to make sure that you're getting your B vitamins. And so we take all of our recipes and put them through nutritional analysis, as well as our daily menus or what we eat across a week or a month, to ensure that we're getting appropriate levels of proteins, that we're getting appropriate levels of B vitamins, and that we're not nutritionally deficient in some area because we are eating what some people would term a restricted diet. And that's the part that I think is interesting to bring up in conversation, because lots of people would say, oh, you're vegans, you eat a restricted diet, there's all these foods you're not eating. But in my observation and our experience, because we eat all fruits and vegetables, and we eat all across a broad range of pulses and grains, if I were to look at what my kids eat on a weekly or monthly basis versus what I think your average American kid eats, I think your average American kid eats chicken fingers, pizza, cheese strings. You'd be hard pressed to find a fruit in there. They might eat grapes or apples. They don't even know what a Brussels sprout looks like, or a parsnip. But they're in our quote unquote restricted diet, we're eating so much more than what people who are eating, an unrestricted omnivorous diet is. And so, by eating across the rainbow, as some people would say, and by eating across a broad range of fruits and vegetables, you're ensuring that you have nutritional health that will support your Krebs cycle and the energy in your body, and that will support, building muscle, and will support all the things that your body needs to do. And so I think, as molecular biologists and biologists in general, having the understanding for how the body works at a cellular level, all the way up to our phenotypic expression is really important, especially at a nutritional level.
Yeah.
And we recognize that most people have not been studying health, nutrition, and biology for the last 30 years. And, we're counseling people in diet and health. And so I think that it's difficult to say, I want to go vegan and feel really good about making that choice. And then you get to the store and you go, what the heck do I buy? What do I eat? How do I do this in a way that's healthy so that I continue to feel good? And so having some tools and setting yourself up for success from the beginning, where, you organize your kitchen, you organize your pantry, you get your cupboards and your refrigerator organized so that you have what you want to eat to sustain your health and serve your personal values. And, even something simple like going grocery shopping. We have a list that we put together that's a plant-based grocery list that, is customizable to put in the things that you want. But it has prompts in there to go, okay, here are your, different categories of vegetables. And it's actually by color with vegetables, because different colored vegetables have different nutritional values. So it prompts you to go, pick 2 from each category. Here's your fruits. Here's your pulses, your beans, and your lentils. And it gives you some options to perhaps expand your mind to go, oh, I'm going to try lentils. I haven't tried those before. Or what's this bean about? I've had baked beans and canned beans, but I've never cooked a real black bean from scratch. So it prompts you to perhaps expand a little bit and to shop in a way that covers your nutritional needs. So that's something that's for free on our website. People can just go and download that. And that's one way to help make sure that the foods that you want to eat are the foods that end up in your kitchen.
Yeah. So what would you recommend for somebody who's just starting out to do then?
Well,
it's a good question, because we're in the process of writing a course on, mastering the basics of plant-based nutrition right now. And I think that, understanding first how to acquire your food and what food to acquire, and in some cases grow your food too. And back to your other question about, how has the pandemic maybe affected veganism and the uptake of veganism in general. And I think just food security overall, and, the number of people that are starting to grow food that have never grown food before, and the number of people that are actually cooking that have never cooked before, is higher than it's ever been, because we've been forced to be at home and we're looking for creative and healthy ways to, to use our energy and find some fun in it as well. And so, I think there's lots of information out there. Some of it's valuable, some of it's distracting, and like any topic that you would have right now, making sure you're vetting your information sources and that you're using information just that comes from experience and comes from data sources that can be trusted is really important. And I think if you're starting out from scratch, these are the types of people that we would love to come, to be quite candid, to our course, to say, okay, here's the food, here's how we're going to acquire our food. Here's how we're going to organize our kitchen. If you really want to be a vegan, there are certain things that you don't need at all. And there are other things that are indispensable, like the best knife you can possibly have that's always sharp to chop fruits and vegetables, because we're going to chop lots of fruits and vegetables. Yeah. And, a dehydrator is a great thing to have that most people don't even know what it is or what it might be for. But we don't really need something to fry food. I mean, we do have an air fryer, but we seldom use it, right? And so, what your resources are and what, kind of the infrastructure of your kitchen is, what you have to cook with, can make it easier or can make it more difficult, and for supporting your diet in a way that can continue to be sustainable. And then, ensuring that you're eating in a nutritious way is critical, to understand and pick recipes that are providing, things that we need to pay attention to, be vitamins and omegas and vitamin D, or supplementing as it may be as well, are also critically important. And, putting that all together in a way, and then having some nutritious recipes that go along with it is, something that we're in the process, we'll be offering here in the next couple of months, as well as a course, because we want as many people possible to go vegan, because we believe in the personal health effects that it can have for you. And we also believe deeply in the planetary effects that it can have right now. When Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old Swedish girl, addressed the U.S. Congress 2 years ago about climate change and implored our U.S. government to make some changes in order to try to mitigate this problem that's just run out of control. And we've got people, politicians in particular, but general citizens too, who still try to deny that climate change even exists. And so it's a broad range of, opinions that exist, like there are on most topics. But, there were lots of talk shows and things that came out after she addressed Congress that said, well, tell me what me, as one little wee individual and 320 million people in the United States, and as a greater part of the 7.5 billion world population, what can I possibly do to help mitigate climate change, right? Cutting down on plastics and paying attention to your waste and paying attention to what you buy in the first place, and, that kind of reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose, that's all critical information, but one of the greatest ways that any of us have every single meal to affect climate change is to adopt more of a plant-based diet. And so, I think that there's a time when there's a lot of information and there's a lot of motivation, and to try to sort through all of that, can be challenging. And so to find people that have experience, people that have knowledge, people that you can trust, to help you navigate that process, I think, like any other topic that you would have, is critical at this time in our information age.
I think it's important too to look at anyone who embarks on a big project, an artist or somebody building a house. First, they're going to set themselves up for success. They're going to clear out what's unnecessary in their space. They're going to acquire the tools that they need to start and complete the project. And they're going to be organized about it, or it's very difficult to complete the project in a high quality way. And so I would say, if you're starting out, start out with commitment. Clear out your kitchen with all the things that do not support what you want to do with a plant-based diet. If you don't clear out first, it's very difficult to stay the course. And while we're so happy when people go vegan and they're exploring that whole aspect of life, what's more important is that they stay vegan. And if you aren't set up for success from the beginning, it gets difficult to stay vegan. It's difficult for it to become a part of your lifestyle. Doing a diet for a period of time is difficult.
And I think another part of that too is we're in a collective community. And so that go vegan, stay vegan, well, the stay vegan, stay healthy vegan.
Yeah.
Because I can think back, it must have been 10 or 13 years ago, and I don't remember exactly, and I'm sure we could Google it and narrow it down, but there was a couple that had a couple of kids, and they were feeding their kids vegan, and I know one of the kids died. And the couple was taken to court for, child abuse and child neglect, properly so, probably. But that the way what they called a vegan diet and the way that they were feeding those kids, at least from the information that was shared, was anything but really a vegan diet. They had just eliminated meat, but there was no consciousness around the nutritional needs for those kids at all. And so when you have somebody that has, with the greatest intentions, wants to go vegan, but doesn't do it in a highly nutritious and effective way, it creates a bad situation for the entire community, not just for that individual or for their family. And so, I think for us too, a part that we haven't talked much about this morning is our kids have been vegan since they were conceived, and they are very fortunate to go to a school actually that has a vegetarian cafeteria, and they have vegan options there. And again, because we live on a small and I think, relatively supportive community where practically everybody knows everybody, people know the way we eat. We don't really need to talk about it. There are other vegans on the island. And when our kids turn up at a birthday party or, go to a sleepover, something along those lines, those families know and respect the way that our kids eat, and our kids have eaten this way their whole lives, so they know what they want to eat and what they don't want to eat, and their palates are already conditioned in that way. And so it's been reasonably easy for us, and I know that isn't the case for everybody. But it's important that, if you're going to do something like Stacey said, you do it right, you do it with quality, you do it with the right intentions, and that those are all aligned, because what we do is being watched by the worldwide community. And, there are people that are always looking to, knock you down. And thankfully, lots of people, too, who are willing to support you as well. And so we'd like to empower those people.
How do you inspire your kids then to with the vegan lifestyle?
Well, we really try to involve them as much as possible in the whole food process. We grow some of our own food. We have an orchard. We like to grow our greens. Our kids love to pick. Yeah, we grow sprouts. Our kids love to pick. They love to graze outside. It's a fun, the growing part of the food is a fun thing with them. We involve them in our recipe creation and recipe development. And so, and we make most of our things from scratch. And so, we have them sample and try and ask, hey, do you think this needs some more lime? Or do you think this needs to be more spicy? Or is this not sweet enough in some way? Or, what flavor on your tongue is not being stimulated? And so we try to involve them in recipe development. And we, also try to vary their lunches and their breakfasts and what they eat to the greatest extent possible. And when we involve them in the shopping process too. And so if we go to the market and find that, they have cactus today in the market and we haven't eaten cactus before. Okay, well, let's go experiment and play around with cactus. And both of the boys were actually born in Guatemala, so they, have an appreciation for, a black bean based diet and plantains and some of the types of things that are more common in Central America than what we would find in the United Kingdom or in the United States. And so they have we really try to develop their consciousness around food by making it fun and by involving them in all aspects of the process, from food acquisition in the grocery store to growing it to, developing recipes. And, again, like Stacy said too, is we're conscious that they are in the extreme minority as vegan eaters. And so, our kids are rabid skateboarders, and we happen to have a world-class skate park just a mile from our house. But we take samosas to the skate park, and we take, vegan lasagna to the skate park, and we take vegan treats to the skate park. And their friends then see what we're eating and what our boys are eating. And they almost always universally love what we're sharing with them and bring to the skate park. They're getting a free snack, and it's awesome. And so, helping to build community around food in that way, around our boys' community in particular, also is an effective strategy, if you will, for ensuring that, they're supported in the choices that they're making, and that we're, exposing some of their friends to a different way of eating that, in fact, might be more beneficial for them or more preferable for them too. And so I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I'm sure you do.
I do. Another thing that we do that makes our children feel really positive about their diet is when we sit down to dinner, we've got candles on the table. We have flowers. Yeah. They light the candles. They get the silverware out. They've got beautiful placemats and cloth napkins. Our meals are family connection time. Our son Nico likes to write blessings that we all say before we eat, and they've taste tested, and they've been involved. So when we sit down to eat, it's a family event. And then we talk about the food. If we're developing a new recipe, then we are asking those questions, what do you think it needs? And what about this? Well, what if we added that? And they come up with suggestions. So they feel involved and invested. They love the food we eat. And so they feel really positive about the food. And, when they go to a party or they're out and about, they don't have to make a vegan choice. We don't demand that they eat vegan if they go to a birthday party. They choose to. If someone offers them something at the skate park, they'll ask if it's vegan because they like the reasons that we eat a plant-based diet. They care a lot about the environment. They care a lot about their well-being. I mean, they skate hard, they swim hard, they run hard, and they want to feel good. And they know that they do feel good eating what we give them. So they're motivated.
We really try to avoid food ruts too. I mean, I can think back into my 20s when I was single and cooked for myself and mostly worked and hardly thought about food unless I had to. And, you tend to eat the same, 2 weeks worth of meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, the same thing here is that you can become lackadaisical in what you eat, and you can get into patterns and routines. And if you're eating healthy food, that's great. But, kids like things that are fun, and they like things to change, and their minds work really fast. And, for us, we even vary the place that we eat. We'll go eat in the orchard, for a week or, a couple of meals. And then we're fortunate to live on a beach, and we'll go down to the beach and eat on the beach. And, we have a back deck and, dining room table. And, so we even vary up the setting in which we eat so that we kind of keep them guessing. It's like a game. They never know what they're going to get to eat. They never know where they're going to eat it, and it's just kind of a fun way for us to relate in our family. I think another part of it too that's growing for us as well is in our through our website. We have a vegan community, and our oldest son Nico, who's 10, also is going to start to field questions from other kids and make himself available for how a vegan diet affects him and what he thinks about his experience, and having them be available as they have been on some previous interviews and some types of things and involving them more in this aspect of the business as well is also something that we would like to do, and they're very keen for it.
They sound very interesting, let me be honest with you. Do they live. So they like to get involved a lot then?
They do, yeah. They're super creative, and they're very academically interested and engaged, and they're highly energized boys too. And so I think they really understand the value of eating well, and they have not, the sky's the limit for them, and academically and physically and emotionally, and they've just been thriving. And I think that they understand that life is multivariate for sure. There are lots of things that help us thrive, but food as a foundation of air and water and the things that keep us alive, is certainly something that's helped them be successful in whatever they've chosen to do.
And I will say, Chloe, that we've trained them up to like a wide variety of foods and flavors. Since they were little, we chop vegetables very finely when we make a Thai curry. So there's nothing they can really pick out. And when they get a bite, they get all the flavors in one bite. So whether they've noticed or not, they've been very consciously trained up by their sneaky parents, who've been inserting different flavors and raising the hot spicy level slowly over time, so that the 10-year-old just loves hot food. They would have hot food challenges at school. He'd take our horseradish sauce in, and other people would bring salsa, and they love to taste the spicy food. Our Brian, our 6-year-old, is now asking for hot sauce on many of his meals. So, bit by bit, we're training them up for different flavors. And, we know that one of our kids is not so fond of mushrooms, but I chop them really finely or blend them in a gravy or in a vegetable pot pie. And if he can't see them, he doesn't mind the flavor one bit. So, you can do that with anyone, whether you're an adult who says, I don't really care for vegetables. There are a lot of ways that you can hide them in different dishes so that you do develop a palate that can enjoy those new flavors.
Is there any foods you discovered from going vegan that you didn't know of before?
That's a good question.
Well, because we're adventurous scientists, we experiment with food a lot. So I will say that last year we went on a deep dive into Indian food. First we said, let's just do it for a month. We're just going to focus on Indian food, and we're going to, get a cookbook or two and order up all the spices, because, who wants to order 20 new spices if it's something you're going to make, once or twice a year. So we dove into it for a month, and then that actually went on for 6 months pretty intensely, and makes at least a weekly appearance in our meals now. So we discovered a lot of different kinds of lentils. I didn't know about chana dal and moong dal and urad dal. Those were all new kinds of pulses to me. Different types of quinoa. I didn't know that there was finger quinoa, 5 different kinds of quinoa and some of the ancient grains. So when I started diving into Indian food and going, what were the traditional grains that they ate? They weren't white rice and white flour naan, so going a little deeper into that culture's food, we discovered a lot of new things and now have new favorites that we rotate through our diet at least once a week. So that's definitely new.
And I think, London's a great place, maybe the best place to eat in a big city internationally. And, international travel is just an absolute awesome way to expose yourself to fruits and vegetables you might not have known existed, but certainly, as Stacy said, herbs and spices that you're not accustomed to cooking with, and the preparation of those herbs and spices too. It's not traditional in the United States to kind of cook your spices before you actually then cook with your spices. And so, those are new processes and things that are an exciting part that can be a focus of international travel. And I can remember when I tripped around through Ethiopia and learned about teff as a grain, and it's one of the oldest grains on the planet as well. It's super high in iron. And we add teff to our pancakes and to our waffles, and it's got a really unique flavor to it and a unique color. But I'd never cooked with teff before until I went to Ethiopia, and so I think in international or world cuisine or ethnic cuisine, there are all kinds of unique spices in particular, and sometimes fruits and vegetables that we might not have heard of as well, and sea vegetables too that you can find in some places that are not the traditional things that you would have in your monthly rotation of items that you're accustomed to eating.
there's a lot of cultural inspiration for sure. And especially, this last year when international travel's not been so easy, food is a great way to travel and adventure.
It is, yeah. Is there any obscure products that you didn't realize wasn't vegan?
Yeah, last year when we were doing some research, we realized that not all wine was vegan, that they process it through egg whites and different things. And so that was new to learn that was the case.
Some of the binders and some of the vitamins that you can get, multivitamins, the gelatins and the pectins and things are not plant-based. They can be animal-based as well. And that's not called out on the labels or called out on the bottle or the packaging anywhere. And so, you would have to have an understanding of, binders and pectins and some of these types of things that aren't always vegan. And so looking at your vitamins is another possibility that you would want to consider. And I think looking at your source for omega-3s and omega-6s too, oftentimes if they're coming from a sea base, they're going to be vegan, but they don't always come from a sea-based source. And so, again, back to multivitamins, some of the multivitamins that you are taking or could be taking might in fact not be vegan, and that's not readily called out on any of the packaging either.
I know too that toothpastes and candles and shampoos, that there can be animal sourced products in those, and it can be a little overwhelming. I must say that we don't sleuth and figure out every single item that we bring into our house if everything is sourced vegan.
Outside of food.
Yeah, outside of food. Our food, absolutely. But vitamins are a big one, especially the omegas, because people think that it's cod liver oil and not shrimp, but krill oil. And some people do think those are vegan. They don't actually realize that krill are animals. And so making sure that those are seaweed based or rather than fish, marine animal based is important to look at.
What would you say the health benefits of going vegan are?
Oh, those are so well documented. Let me say that going vegan does not mean being healthy. We've touched on that a bit. You can live on Doritos, Coca-Cola, and Oreos and be a vegan, and that's not going to go so well. But if you, like us, you eat a whole foods plant-based diet, and you try to eat locally, and you eat well, and you eat a lot of vegetables and fruits and less of the processed vegan foods, that the research shows that you're going to mitigate the number one killers across the world: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancers. You're going to optimize your health. We all have our genetics and our exposure to chemicals and different things in the environment that we can't necessarily control or haven't controlled in our past. And eating a really healthy diet for us, different people need different levels of protein, so it's very individual. But when you eat well, you can optimize your health. There's no guarantee that you're going to live to be 120 and still be running 4 miles a day. But you can optimize what you've got. And a plant-based diet and eating a wide range of fruits and vegetables is a good way to do that.
And like Stacy said, I think you can look at a broad range of disease states, and a vegan diet is being advocated as the cure. And it works in many cases, not all for sure, but it's being advocated as the cure for cancer, the cure for diverticulitis and different types of intestinal diseases, the cure, for seizures and all kinds of things that, can affect you in an undesirable way. And so, food is medicine. And so your diet and how you eat is medicine for you as well. And I think that, having eaten this way for, half my life, I am highly energized. I'm never left wanting, basically. I think not that it matters, but most people think we're 10 years younger than we really are. If you look at longevity studies for length of life, plant-based diets, vegetarian and vegan diets, tend to be, at the top of the list. And the people that live the longest or regularly are living to be over 100 years of age have a lot of plants in their diet. And they eat a lot less calories overall, too. Not only eating the right things, but sometimes eating less food actually is proving to be something that's very beneficial as well. And so, if you just look at, I think, quality of life overall, in addition to quantity of life, all we can talk about is our experience. And I know that it's the right diet for me because I couldn't imagine eating any other way. There isn't anything else that I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And my physical body, my mental body, my emotional health, all for the most part, and we certainly have our days and our issues from time to time, but, served me extremely well. And, the real blessing in it for us, I think, is that as scientists, we've not only experimented on ourselves, but we've experimented on our kids. And, some people might think that's a little irresponsible, but we would turn around and say, well, come meet our kids and hang out with our kids. We love our kids. They're awesome. And they're super healthy, and they're not held back in any way. They're thriving. And I think a big part of that, again, life is multivariate, but a big part of it for sure is their diet. And so not only did it prove out in ourselves, but it's proved out so far in our kids. And that, that kind of proof of concept, if you will, from a scientific study standpoint, is very valuable. And certainly from an emotional wanting to be the best parents we can standpoint, a real blessing as well.
And I'll say that through my years of clinical practice, I've had a number of people willing to try at least a 2-week plant-based diet. And the feedback from that was amazing. There was a woman in her 50s that had such severe back pain and had had surgery and was uncomfortable, certainly. And she told me that it lowered her inflammation so much that she had, 80% less back pain because of that diet. And so she's been on that diet now for years. She is not a vegan, but it is very plant focused. She found it worked well for her. And other people that had diabetes, that they needed so much less insulin when they shifted their diet to a whole foods plant-based diet. And, there are lots of cases where people have improved their health dramatically by shifting their diet. So that's been a firsthand experience for me too in counseling people.
And not only, I think, from the perspective of maximal health for preventing as well as mitigating disease states, but also for peak athletic performance. There's a great video out that you can dial up on the internet called Game Changers. And the oldest female athlete ever to win an Olympic gold medal was on a vegan diet as a cyclist. The strongest man in the world right now is a vegan. Conor McGregor, who was the top MMA fighter at the top of his mixed martial art career, was beaten by a vegan who had longer and better stamina than he did.
Despite intense training on his part.
Yeah, there are many cases where you can find not only does a vegan diet provide the foundation for health and well-being, but it also helps you excel as a top-notch world athlete in many different types of physically demanding sports too. And so, I think oftentimes when we talk about vegan diet with people that are exploring it or thinking about it, the number one question that seems to come up time and time again is, where do you get your protein? Or how do you guys get enough protein? Or, my protein. And, in the United States, we've been trained up to hear a lot about protein because kids were given free milk in school. They're still being given free milk in school, every day. And the beef industry and the dairy industry and the mega farming industry overall, has a very open ear in our Congress and in our government. They're highly subsidized financially. The small organic farmers are not. And so there's a disparity in the information that's being presented because there's a disparity in the financing. But, if you just look overall at peak performance for individuals and what would we say is indicative of enough protein? Well, the strongest person in the world is a vegan. And so we look at strength and protein as muscular, and strength as important parts of protein consumption. And we look at high profile athletes and peak performance in those gold medal winning performances, that as the standards for what is healthy and strong. And more and more, as more people go the vegan path, more of those peak performances, if you will, are being achieved by vegans too. And so, I think there's lots of information that would say not only is a vegan diet good for preventing and mitigating health and disease states, but also for, peak athletic and peak physical performance.
What would you say to your community if they message you saying, like, I'm looking to go vegan, how can you help me?
Oh, cool. Right.
Or plant-based, plant-based or vegan.
Yeah, plant-focused at least.
Yeah.
First we congratulate them, good on you, and then we'll say, well, let's set you up for success. What are your goals? How do you want to do this? Do you want to transition slowly? Are you 100% in? Do you want to optimize where you're at? What do you need to learn about nutrition? We find out, what are the holes that you need. Hi, kitty.
Just broke in the room. I'm like, oh, hello, cat.
And then we help them set up the strategies. On our website, we've got a lot of recipes that are posted. We have a page about going vegan, and there's some great information on there about nutrition. Because if you feel good, you're going to stay with something. So number one, let's make sure you're meeting your nutrition. Let's make sure you're set up, your kitchen set up. You know how to shop. You've got some good recipes at hand. Just to give them all the tools that they need is what we would do.
And then to provide a community too that, is supportive when you make a change for anything in life. If you move, if you change your job, if you go from no kids to one kid, if you go from single to, in a relationship, those are big transitions in life. And those are times when we look for support from, people that we trust, people that are educated, and people that can support us through the process, through the inevitable, pitfalls and challenges that are going to happen along the way. And so finding a community that is, has a similar motivation and is trying to achieve a similar end goal, so that you can share your experience and then have some people guide you in a intellectual way and in a scientifically supported way, I think is critically important. And what I would add, before all of that too, in addition to congratulating them and, giving them as much support straight up front for making a choice to go to a plant-based diet, is to understand their motivations for why they're doing it. We all come to it from a different standpoint. Somebody might be trying to lose 30 pounds. Somebody else might be trying to lower their cholesterol 50 points. Somebody else might come from a family where, everyone for 3 generations before them died from colon cancer. Somebody might be, coming to you because they really care about, climate change. And this is one way that I think I can help mitigate climate change. Somebody else might come to you because they really can't stand to see the slaughter of animals, and they're really, sensitive to the, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to kill, and I'm not going to be part of that process at all. And so we come to this place, or we come to this choice for different reasons. And the reason that we come is important because it's part of the motivation that will keep you going down the path when things inevitably become, a little bit difficult, and you have an urge, or you have a challenge, or you have a family member that might not, appreciate what you're doing and thinks that you're being reckless, or you're endangering your family, or you're endangering yourself, or you have friends or whomever it might be that provides some resistance in some way. And so being educated about what you're doing and doing it in a very thoughtful, nutritious way is important, because then the choice that you're making, no matter where you're coming from, has the maximum chance of being a successful one for you.
I was going to say, what do you suggest people to do then? How do you help them to stay vegan?
Well, for one, they can get their shopping list so that when they go to fill up their cupboards and their pantries and their refrigerators, they're making some good choices, because you'll eat what you have. Mm-hmm. So number one, make sure that you're filling your house with, what you want to eat. Mm-hmm. And number two, start cooking some new ways, acquire some recipes. If you've been used to eating hamburgers and fries, well, step out a little bit and try a veggie burger, try some sweet potato fries instead. Get some recipes that will help you expand your palate at a rate that you're comfortable with. And if you've got some recipes, you've got the right ingredients, you've got a good knife, and hopefully a good blender as well. Those are tools that we use every single day. Then you have the opportunity to make some great food, love it, and feel better. So getting into, as Marcus said, getting into a community where you can ask questions and get support is key, because you're going along the way and suddenly you've got a question, and if you don't have anyone to ask and you don't know how to problem solve your way through that, or even have the time to, you might just give up on it. So having that community is important. Taking a course like the one we're going to do, which is Mastering the Fundamentals of Nutritious Plant-Based Cooking, get yourself educated. If you don't know what you need to eat to stay healthy or to mitigate the health concerns that you have, you're not going to do it. So get educated, get prepared, get a good community together, and keep going from there. And if you need personal counseling, well, set up a call with us or find another vegan health coach that can support you. But if you are serious about eating a plant-based diet as a lifestyle because you want to live by your values and you want to feel successful in that, every day that you get up and you eat a plant-based diet, you'll feel good. You will have done something good for yourself, for the planet, for the animals.
Even if your day sucks, you can still feel good that 3 times today I did something that was good for me and good for the environment. And that's an amazing thing to always have that in such a positive way in your life. And I think that, the other thing that I might advise people who are looking at making a change of any type in their life, not just their diet, but whatever that might be, taking on a new form of exercise or starting to exercise after they've never exercised, whatever it might be, changes take time. And to learn a new process and to, learn a new way of stocking your kitchen and to learn a new way of processing food and to change your mindset and your relationship to what you're putting into your body and your habits is going to take a little bit of time. There are all kinds of psychological studies that would say, it takes at least 40 days and maybe more like 60 days, whether you're taking a nutritional supplement, whether you're trying a new meditation technique, whether you're keeping a new way of list of things to do to get yourself organized, that, you have to do something repetitively for that, month to 2 month to 3 month period before you're actually going to see positive change. And so going back to the I don't really like the term, but it's being used widely, the junk food vegan, somebody who doesn't, we're all busy. I mean, even with the pandemic and sort of being trapped at home, we're all super busy. Everybody's got too many Zoom meetings and we're still trying to work. And at the same time, if you have family, take care of your family. And, we're all looking for time. People would happily buy time if they could. This is not going to save you time to make the change in the beginning. It's going to require some time and some repatterning and some new habits in order to set yourself up for success. And so I think having the recognition that it is going to take a little bit more time. I am going to have to read some information. I am going to have to take a course. I am going to have to, talk to some community people and find some support. I am going to have to do these types of things up front in order to set myself up for success. Because if I make this change, I am going to be more energized, highly likely. I am going to be more healthy, highly likely. I am going to have less days in a given year where I have the flu or I don't feel well or I don't go to work. I'm going to be more productive. I'm going to be more efficient. And so while it takes more time up front to make any type of change, and this is the same thing with the dietary change as well, the benefits that you'll appreciate far outweigh the investment that you're going to have to make up front if you stick with the long game. If you do it, quick, simple, and easy, and I'm just going to go buy all the highly processed food off the shelf and call myself a vegan, for a week or two, and then find out I don't feel well, or, I don't have any clue what I'm doing, the likelihood that you're going to have positive results is probably not high, and the likelihood that you're going to have sustainable results is also not high. And so I think, again, it's really important, as with any life change, to acknowledge that you're making an investment, and you're making an investment in yourself, which is maybe the most important investment that you can make. And as a positive side effect, you're making an investment in the planet and for all the kids and all the people that are going to come after us as well. And so it's an investment that you can feel really good about.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss?
Boy.
Well, I don't know. We could talk about recipes. We could talk about our, favorite ethnic foods. We could talk about all kinds of things. But we really appreciate the opportunity just to talk with you at all. We talked to the UK vegan family a couple of months ago, I guess now, and it's been, just interesting to hear about some of the differences that exist amongst our countries that are cultural, and certainly, food falls into those categories as well. And just some of the differences and issues that exist, across the world. And we're always, we often are looking at the UK for what you all have got going on over there, because you're kind of leading the world, in some ways, for the number of people that are eating vegan, and, just interest in articles produced and recipes and things along those lines as well. And so what I might turn around that question that you just asked us, and I don't want to cut off Stacey because I think she had something to say, but I would bring it back to you and say, well, what would you like to tell us about your vegan experience? And, what have you been, how did you get to this place? And, how you're clearly a leader there, and you are shaping opinions and sharing information. And how is that experience for you?
So I'll start off with your first question. So I have been vegan for a little bit over a year. I started off cutting out dairy because every time I ate dairy, my stomach would puff and hurt. So I stopped eating dairy, cheese, milk, yogurts and all that. So I cut all that out, and then I got alternatives to that, is what I did. Then my boyfriend got involved, and he also he pretty much didn't transition as much as I did. He kind of went full blown into it. So we started getting vegan bacon, vegan cheese, the chicken joint you can get from Asda around the corner. I cook Morley. I'd say I made a mushroom and onion soup the other day that I just made from fresh, and I just left it in the slow cooker all day and just left it in there, and I was like, all right, that's done. That's my dinner for the next 2 days. And I had it again today. Sweet potato and red onion soup's one of my favourite things to cook, I guess you could say. I love throwing different stuff in and all that. What else can I say about... So yeah, I've been vegan for a little bit over a year. Started off dairy-free. But now I think gluten's also hurting my stomach, so that's another issue. But yeah. I guess for me, it's looking for different recipes as well. Because especially in the UK, a lot of things are in tins.
Yeah.
So we have tin chickpeas, tin black beans, tin kidney beans. So it's... I like to do, like I say, a chili, but I don't like spice. So I kind of just whack the beans in, and I spice it with either barbecue seasoning, paprika, salt, and all that. Put spinach in it, sometimes parsley, and all that. So that's my experience. But then over in the UK as well, we have a lot of vegan takeaways. So we have like Frankie and Benny's, which do love a nice vegan burger. Pizza Hut, they do like... they do like the vegan stuffed crust now and the vegan pizza, but then they also do a really nice vegan cheesecake. Yeah, Pizza Hut, yeah. Vegan. They also do a vegan cheesecake, which is very nice and very different. So over in the UK, and I've got to say, Starbucks has now started doing like a Beyond Meat breakfast sandwich, which is really nice, which is pretty nice.
And you did a video on that, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a review of it. Yeah.
I saw part of the video. Your taste test. Is it really worth it?
Is it? Yeah, that one. Yeah. There's also a lot of makeup brands now in the UK which are vegan, which is what I've got on my eyes right now. They also, so there's like a few different ones. There's Oh, KVD is what it's called.
Uh-huh.
And it's a vegan makeup brand, and it's all made vegan free, cruelty free. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll buy that. Shouldn't have spent money on that, but that's okay. So yeah, for me, it's finding different items, and then also you get like, I'm going to call them accidentally vegan, in quotes, because that's what everyone calls them. So like, I didn't realize that super noodles, like chicken flavored super noodles, were vegan, but they are.
Bonus.
Yeah, I never noticed, but that's the only pack that's vegan. What bugs me is, do you guys have Pringles out there?
Yep.
We do.
Is the salt and vinegar one vegan for you?
I
haven't
can't
looked
answer
it
You
up.
that.
can't. You don't know. Because over in the UK, they've got the Texas barbecue one, which is vegan. And then the salt and vinegar one has milk in.
What?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not
Yeah.
necessary.
It's not, is it? So
Milk is in a lot of processed foods where you wouldn't expect it. It's puzzling.
milk and eggs is what I find is in a lot of it. So I didn't know jelly tots were vegan, fruit pastels were vegan until I brought them, and I was like, wait, they're vegan? And looked at the packet and I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome. And I used to eat a lot of sweets, chocolate. Oh, the vegan bounty is really nice. That's another topic. So yeah, for me, it's kind of finding stuff that I would eat before I was vegan and just changing it out and swapping it for something that, like a vegan burger or chips and sweet potato fries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's morely me.
Well, it sounds like you are taking a nice steady path and, expanding your palette and your experiences in a sustainable way that's interesting and serves you well. Good for you, Chloe.
And you make a great point too, which I appreciate, and I think it's important for people to understand, is that we're all already a certain percentage of what we eat is vegan, and we don't even know it, right? Yeah. Depending on what you choose to put on your green salad, if you happen to like green salads, whatever dressing you put on it, that's going to be, if it's an oil and vinegar based dressing and not a milk based dressing, it's going to be vegan every single time. And, most people eat salads on a pretty regular basis. And like you said, there are products that most people are already eating that are vegan. And so to understand that, an omnivorous diet already includes vegan products that you eat, or includes vegan dishes, or vegan ways to eat is great. And I think that why we come to eating vegan, and if we stay, is in large part due to how we choose to explore and to adopt a vegan diet. Some people can do it overnight. They're just ready, and that's what's meant for their body type. Other people have to transition into it slowly. And we all have different body types. And maybe some people do need meat. I mean, if you look at animals on the planet, we've had omnivores and herbivores and carnivores since the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And so maybe human beings are the same way. Maybe there are some people that, for whatever reasons, do need to have more meat in their diet, or need to have more of a certain kind of product. That may or may not be true. I don't really know. All I know is what works for me, and in experimenting with my diet and coming to, I know I'm a plant eater because it's just the thing that it's what I want to do. It's not an effort for me, and it serves me so well. And so, I think when people think about making a change, or think about, well, how can I have an impact on my personal health, or how can I have an impact on planetary health, even if it's just one meal, or it's one day out of the week where you're eating a vegan meal, many people are already doing that. And so, acknowledging that and taking one more small step in that general direction, can help give you more information as to whether or not it might be the right thing for you to do.
Something else that I thought of while you were explaining your path to veganism, Chloe, is that I see this in the UK and the United States, where in our food, it's like, here's your meat, here's your starch, your potato, your rice, your bread, and here's your vegetable, maybe it's carrots, and maybe there's a green salad or something like that. And our food is separated in that way. And I reflect that in our diet, we don't eat a lot of meals that way. We'll do a Thai curry where we have, 10 different vegetables cut up. And in that, we'll make a vegetable pot pie that has a lot of chopped vegetables in it. We'll do a unrolled sushi salad. We make meals that are often one pot, and we'll do a side salad. Because how many ways can you cook a carrot? Like, there's only so many ways if you want to eat carrots that you can have a handful of carrots on your plate.
And I think part of the advent of that for us is having kids. And, when you have a kid and you give them 4 things totally separated, they can pick and choose. I want the green thing, or I don't want the green thing for lots of kids. I want the red thing, or whatever it might be. We've always tried to, I think we call them silver bowl cooking, and we get one big silver bowl and kind of mix all the ingredients in there so that every single spoonful or forkful of food, you have every ingredient that you're serving for the meal. And so, it was kind of a maybe devious strategy on our part with the kids early on, because we did not want them to pick out the thing they thought they didn't like. And like we said, our youngest son, Ryan, would say he doesn't like mushrooms. But the fact is, he loves mushrooms and he eats them all the time because we put him in all kinds of things. He just doesn't know he's eating them. But if he sees the mushroom and he knows the mushroom's in there, he's not going to eat it, right? And now he's starting to think about liking mushrooms, because he does know, I think, that we're putting mushrooms in things, and he knows that he's being duped. And, it was the same way, too, with spicy foods for them, since like about, a year and a half or 2 years of age, maybe even a little bit earlier, but from as early as Solid Foods, starting to jack up the spice level in curries and even introducing them to curries and, trying to work out every aspect of the tongue: bitter, sour, spicy, sweet. I think oftentimes kids will say, because they've been trained up, they want a whole bunch of really sweet foods. Well, they want sweet foods because that's become the strength of their tongue and in their palate. They haven't chosen to stimulate, or their parents haven't chosen to stimulate for them in most cases, the other aspects of flavor that are in our mouth. And so we try to stay conscious of all of those different flavor zones, if you will, and ensuring that they're all represented in every meal that we have. And not only represented in every meal that we have, but they're represented in almost every bite that we take. Yeah. And so that it's more of a concert of flavors, as opposed to deciding that you only like electric guitar, or you only like woodwinds, or you only like trombone. And lots of kids are given the opportunity to do that. But if you only ever give them the concert or the end product, it makes it very hard then to pick out sometimes the individual instruments that you think are most soothing to your ear, or most meaningful, or most motivational. And so, I think that we have adopted kind of that way of cooking. And I think in the United States, it's also common to see, oftentimes a boiled vegetable, and then your protein source, which is usually a meat, and then maybe a salad and a starch, a potato or rice or something along those lines that are all divided up. But if you went to India, that is not the way they eat. If you go to Central America, that's not the way they eat there. It's in a lot of cultures, I think, outside of American culture, there's more of a mixing together of the ingredients, and therefore a mixing together of the flavors. And, I remember once we were doing our deep dive into Indian cooking in general, I can't remember, you tell me what the quote was, but when they had all 63 spice flavors represented in a dish, they considered it to be complete. 63 in a whole meal. Then, I mean, that's a remarkable number. I think if we picked anybody off the street here in the United States, including myself, and asked them to name 63 spices, let alone get them all represented in one meal, you'd be really lucky to find that. And so, where I come from, where I grew up in the United States, there was always the joke that people cook with 3 spices: ketchup, mustard, or 4, salt and pepper, and that's about it. And I think that, the average person throw in some barbecue sauce and some other things too. Those are oftentimes what we're using for flavoring. But, back to one of your earlier questions, exploring the world of herbs and spices around the world and those different ways that you can flavor dishes is a load of fun, highly educational, and, a real good workout for your tongue and for your palate that helps you expand the types of things that stimulate you in positive ways.
I think too, when I look at what we eat and how we eat, that there are certain sauces or pastes that we have available. So if we're home late, we're going to get home late tonight because the kids have a swim class in the evening. So we're going to be arriving home after 5. And, we've got those couple hours, to prep our dinner, eat our dinner, get the kids bathed and off to bed. So it's a bit of a rush if we don't make our meal before swim class happens. But I know that we have a jar of homemade pesto in the fridge. I know that we have some tomato accar, spicy tomato accar. I know that we have a green curry sauce that we've made in the fridge. So if I want to throw some vegetables together in a pot, put some coconut milk and this green curry paste in it while the rice cooker is making some rice, we have a meal ready. So these sauces that can make a meal happen sometimes in, 5-10 minutes are just awesome to have on hand. It's what makes it easy and doable. Because I think that some people come home late and they're just like, oh my God, I'm just going to order out and, I don't know what they're going to get, Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. I don't know. But it's easier if you've got sauces and paste that you can always make what's called a Buddha bowl, where you've got a grain, you've got some veggies, you've got whatever protein source you choose, and you put a sauce on it. And that's easy to do, whether you make them from scratch or you buy the sauces at the store. That's an easy way to have a veggie-focused meal and a snack.
And we're fortunate because we both enjoy being in the kitchen and we both enjoy cooking together. And, when you think about the pandemic and what we've all, undergone in our own personal ways for the past year to year and a half, it's been a really fun thing for us, as it has always been, but even more so, I think, to be able to share food and cooking and the food acquisition and the food growing process, in our personal relationship and then in our family relationship with the boys as well. It's been, something that's super positive during a time that's not, been overwhelmingly positive for too many people. And so that's been great. And, I think that, to Stacy's point, we love to get into the kitchen together, and we're equally happy to go outside and go for a walk on the beach or go do something else and still have food kind of magically appear, right? And so, because it is a process, right? And you can't spend all day long in the kitchen because too much of anything can become a bad thing as well. But when we get into the kitchen together, in addition to the focus of the meal that's before us, whether that's a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner, being able to make that pesto or being able to make that tomato accar or come out of the kitchen in that time period that we spent, not only with the meal address that's upcoming, but something that we know is going to contribute to the boys' breakfast, the boys' lunch, probably a whole nother meal, at some point during the course of the week is it takes some training, but that's where you then begin to find the efficiencies around cooking that are time saving. And so, making up pesto on Sunday, a big old jar, we know we've got sauteed gnocchi or any kind of pasta that we would want to go along with it. We can saute tofu in it. The boys take it with, cheese and lettuce and sprout sandwiches for their lunch. They like it on toast for breakfast. They'll eat it straight out of the jar just by the spoonfuls too, because they just happen to love pesto. And we actually now make it for, their classmates because they're taking it into the school, and our neighbors, and people just happen to kind of really like our pesto, which is great. But it's a highly, like Stacy said, a highly flexible sauce that we can make the focus of a meal. We can make a condiment. It can be a snack, but it makes, times like tonight for us where we already know the kids are going to come home from school. We got to get them changed up. We're going to go to the pool. They're going to swim. We're going to come back. They're going to be wet. And we're not going to spend, an hour on dinner tonight. Well, I got pesto, and that's awesome. I don't have to spend an hour on dinner.
No, yeah. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Chloe.
It's been fun to explore the world of vegan eating with you. We wish you all kinds of success on your year-long experiment and hope it continues to serve you and Chris in ways that are super healthy and well. We celebrate and appreciate you doing it because it makes the planet better for all of us too.
Thank you. I hope everyone listening found something useful from your story today and experience with veganism. Do you want to remind everybody where to find you before we close?
Yes, we are at www.yourveganfamily.com, and it's Your Vegan Family across all the social media channels as well. But our website's got a lot of recipes. It's got a lot of guidance. It has some free things for you. It's a great place to go for resources to give you the education, help you get prepared, so that you can succeed in staying vegan for the long haul.
Find a community.
Yeah, and join our community. We'd love to be able to interact and support people personally.
If you enjoyed the show today, follow the show wherever you're listening to the podcast. For those who are watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button. There are plenty more to come. If you're interested in appearing on one of these shows to discuss your experience, or just want to keep up with us, find us on Instagram at Making Vegan Ordinary. Or if you want to drop by and have a conversation with us live, myself and my partner Chris stream every Friday and Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT on Twitch. You can find the link for all the info in the description below. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Chloe.